Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, often completely hidden psychological battle that millions of people are fighting every single day. Picture this. You wake up, absolutely crush your work presentations, manage the whole household, and act as the rock for all your friends, all while fighting a completely silent war inside your own head. This is the reality of high-functioning depression. It's staggeringly common, especially among high-achieving executives, exhausted parents, or really any dedicated caregiver who literally cannot afford to just stop. It doesn't look like what we typically picture when we think of depression, and honestly, that invisible nature, that's exactly what makes it so incredibly tough to endure.
Okay, let's dive into this because the contrast here is just stark. On the left, you've got the appearance, right? The mask. This person is highly capable, hitting every single goal, socializing, and seemingly thriving. But take a look at the reality on the right. The second the laptop closes or that front door shuts, the mask just drops entirely. They feel totally empty, completely exhausted, and they essentially just shut down. I mean, they fulfill every single obligation they have to the world, but there's absolutely nothing left in the tank for themselves. So to really understand what's happening here, psychologists often link this functional aspect of depression to something called dysthymia. It's basically a prolonged, persistent state of depression. Now, folks dealing with this might not feel entirely helpless or bedridden like someone facing severe, acute clinical depression. They still get up, they still go to work, but their overall quality of life and their genuine interest in the world drastically diminished. It's like the color is just drained from their world, even though they're perfectly going through the motions.
Which brings us to the illusion of productivity.
See, simply doing your job and paying the bills creates this incredibly deceptive illusion of wellness. To the outside world, your productivity basically equals your happiness. But internally, that couldn't be further from the truth. There are 7 key signs that highlight this massive disconnect, and we're going to run through these first few pretty quickly. Sign number 1 is this constant, nagging sense of wasted time. You could literally be checking off every single box on your daily to-do list, crushing your goals, and yet the overarching feeling is still just, I am wasting my time.
And it totally bleeds beyond the daily routine, too. Even if you pick up a completely new hobby or land this shiny new job, it just feels entirely useless. You are constantly, relentlessly interrogating yourself, wondering if the time you're investing in literally anything is even remotely worth it.
Which feeds right into sign number 2, the relentless inner critic. Because there's this deeply rooted feeling that you aren't actually accomplishing anything meaningful, your immediate internal response is just this harsh, punishing self-critique. The mantra playing on a loop in your head just becomes, I'm not doing enough.
And this brilliantly illustrates the trap. To compensate for feeling inadequate, you end up setting your expectations unreasonably high. You are constantly pushing yourself to the absolute limit, which, of course, directly damages your mental state. It's this vicious cycle of functioning at 110% outwardly, while feeling like you're literally at 0% inwardly.
And that leads directly to sign number 3, overanalyzing everything until you hit a breaking point. Whether it's a massive life decision or just some tiny, totally insignificant comment from a coworker, your brain just will not turn off. You overanalyze the situation constantly, draining whatever mental energy you had left, which eventually leads to a complete mental crash. But let's look at the weight of being misunderstood.
Now, I really want us to just take a deep breath here and just slow down for a second. All of that speed, all of that intense productivity we were just talking about, that is really just the armor. Underneath all that armor is a deeply profound, incredibly heavy sense of isolation. And this brings us to the 4th sign. Because functional depressives can hold down a job, maintain a home, and take care of their families, society views them as perfectly capable and healthy. But the reality is that people are drastically underestimating the sheer volume of anxiety this person is carrying around all day. Their feelings get minimized, often by friends, family, or even doctors, simply because they don't look or behave like a quote-unquote typical depressed patient. They are quite literally suffering in plain sight. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this condition attacks the very concept of joy. Sign number 5 is this pervasive, lingering sadness. Look, it's completely normal to feel sad sometimes, but we're talking about feeling profoundly empty almost all the time. Even when you're right in the middle of a supposedly really fun activity with your friends or your family, that heavy emptiness is just sitting right there next to you, making it absolutely impossible to be truly present. So, how do people cope? That brings us to surviving through escapism.
When you are carrying that much weight, feeling that much emptiness, and still trying to perform for the world every single day, you have to find a way to let off steam. I mean, how do you survive the burnout of functioning when your internal battery has been dead for months? Well, you turn to frantic distractions. Here we see signs 6 and 7 combined. As exhaustion completely takes over, these are the extreme methods people use to just numb the stress. It might manifest as an unhealthy reliance on alcohol or drug use just to cope with getting through a stressful day. Or it could look like spending every single waking hour outside of work excessively playing video games or just endlessly binge watching TV series. Basically, you're doing whatever you possibly can to just force your brain to shut off. So the crucial point is this. These are not just normal hobbies, they are a way to escape reality. To an outside observer, it just looks like, hey, you really enjoy gaming or watching television, but it's actually a desperate coping mechanism. It's an obsessive attempt to flee from an internal reality that has just become way too exhausting to face. You aren't playing the game to have fun, you're playing the game so you just don't have to exist in your own head for a few hours.
Let's talk about moving towards true healing. The really tricky, insidious thing about functional depression is that because you're meeting all your responsibilities, you might actually convince yourself that you're totally fine. But living your life with a constant underlying hum of sadness, emptiness, and brutal self-criticism, that's not normal. And you absolutely do not have to just accept it as your permanent baseline. If you recognize yourself, or maybe someone you love, in these behaviors, the absolute most important thing you can do is to try and find the origin of your pain. The research emphasizes this so heavily. Simply managing the symptoms or distracting yourself with more work or more hobbies, that'll only get you so far. Seeking out the actual root cause by taking off that armor and speaking with a professional is the only true path to genuine, lasting recovery. So I want to leave you with this final, incredibly vital question to reflect on today. Are you just functional, or are you truly happy? Because fulfilling your obligations to your job, your family, and society is important, sure, but it should never come at the cost of your own well-being.